Welcome to Backyard Oasis, a podcast designed by and for older adults living in the beautiful Pioneer Valley of Western Massachusetts and produced in the tech studios at Greenfield Community College in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second podcast here. We are going to be talking about a little bit of a different topic today. We're going to cover poetry, and I have with me an excellent guest who was my poetry teacher when I was here at the Greenfield Community College. I was privileged to take not only poetry, but a independent study that was around women's studies when I was also taking the poetry class, and I took another workshop class that was partly taught by our next guest to look at different aspects of looking at media with an eye to feminism and women's rights. I would like to thank you if you're back, and I would like to also thank Alex for helping us out with the technical aspects of the podcast. But with no much further ado, I will start, and our guest is Joanne Hayes today, and she is here to tell us about her third poetry book. And I would just like to know why this book? Now, maybe two. Sorry, two questions at once. First, how about why this book first?
This has been sort of in the background for about 10 years, and the poem I'm going to read started about 10 years ago when I realized that I had grown up in what was called the Prairie State. And Prairie Avenue was right behind me. Prairie Elementary School was down the road. The Prairie Path came a little bit later, and I thought, where is the prairie?
Good question.
And because I have not only a feminist bent, but an environmental bent, I thought, I'm going to write a poem that reflects, my experience growing up knowing I was in what I call the shadow of the prairie.
Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, so I did some research 2 years ago when I was fully retired. I retired 3 times. So my final retirement, I just went to Illinois. Naperville, Illinois is where I grew up, and I started researching the prairie. So I'll read this first poem.
I think that would be great.
Okay.
We'll give everybody an idea what the book's vibe is
about. Sure. Okay. Oh, by the way, the other Illinoisan, but not Naperville, was Carl Sandburg, and I grew up studying all these Illinois poets, writers.
Oh, great.
And so I give an homage or an honor to Carl Sandburg because the title actually comes from about 2/3 through his 5-page poem that he wrote in 1913.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
I am the prairie. I am the prairie, honey wheat, freckled-faced Delilah, Frank Lloyd Wright girl, as native as the seeds. Virgin grasses echo each footfall like corn husks fringed with golden hair. Willa Cather bronzed, bold woman striding across years of open fields, rye wise and lean. Stretching frontier edges, splashing water on vine-ripe legs until fires build into wild trees, and I become the prairie as the prairie becomes me.
Wow, that's excellent. I have so much imagery from the prairie, and I must say I did not grow up on a prairie. Very, very far from it. I grew up in a city, so in the inner city, so it's very different. But I could definitely see, and I sort of had an image of where you were talking about before you described it, but then when you described it, it was much more beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, I know you already sort of addressed this a little bit about because you're from Indiana.
Illinois.
I'm
That's
sorry.
Okay, no
I get
worries.
the eyes confused. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
And I guess my question would be, why did you start writing poetry? Or was it always poetry when you started writing?
Well, I think I started, in grade school. Everybody writes little poems.
Yeah.
And I was very influenced by my father reading poetry to me. Particularly Mother Goose rhymes, which have
wow.
this lilt and cadence, ta-dum,
I think that's how I think of poetry, or a
I
lot
know.
of people do that. It like rhymes or
I
it
know.
has some
I
schemescape.
know.
But when I listen to your poetry, I think, wow, this is very beautiful, and
Thank
it paints
you.
a picture. It's a story. It's not necessarily. I mean, maybe it does rhyme. I don't know
No.
the thing or whatever. But
doesn't.
I'm saying like it's
Yeah.
I think there's more kinds of poetry than we realize.
Right. Well, it has an internal rhythm or beat or
Yeah, I can
cadence
feel
to
like
it.
the heartbeat almost in
Yeah.
it, if I may be so bold to say, because
Right.
especially when you spoke with a woman, and it brought that
Yeah.
up. I don't know if we weren't talking to that so much. And
Yeah.
what was, and then, and I already know because you said that you consider yourself a feminist. So when you write your poetry, do you think of women specifically, or is it just like by effect that they happen to be in the poetry because you're a woman and it affects your life? You know what I mean? It reflects your life.
Yeah, well, I really like the way you phrase that, because when I went through my book looking at poems and trying to, because I would say, well, I write from nature, I write from
Right.
personal experience. I have become known as the writer of giving honor to my friends,
Oh, that's good.
people who have passed on, weddings. I start writing poetry, but they always have some connection to nature. But when I went through these poems, over half have this feminine eye, this
Oh, interesting.
sense of being a woman in the context of my environment. So, yeah.
Because
So
I think sometimes, like, I'm not into poetry because they're all white old dudes. And it's like, well, apparently not. You know what I mean?
but mostly the images just come to me, or if I think about, what's their name, how does the name reflect that person?
Right.
So anyway, but the
That's a good
prairie
process.
was very different, but I felt immediately that I was a part of it as a woman.
Right. And also just from being there, like you said, right? Because you grew up there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but if you'd like to tell folks, just in case they're interested, I was also interested in just how you became a published author. I feel like a lot of people I talk to have that goal, but I don't know if we all know how to get there,
Right. Well, I never thought about publishing. So I wrote, I started changing my style, as artists and musicians do, into what's called free verse.
Okay.
So it doesn't have an end rhyme scheme like Shakespeare or nursery rhymes.
Sound like a haiku.
Right. And a haiku is very abstract and very imagistic, and it has, an internal balance and rhythm as well as an external one. It's actually difficult to write.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know how to write that.
So I've had these, I really started writing in the 90s, like, I wrote through college, high school, college, a little afterwards, but somehow in the 90s, I was already teaching here, and these images just kept coming. So I have all these, maybe it was also having, word processing, rather than writing by hand, which I still do,
Right.
by the way.
And do you work with an editor, or is it just your own process?
Well, so it was Hope Schneider, who was a former librarian here at Greenfield Community College, who said, Joanne, you keep writing poems for people as they retire. You start writing about, I've seen your poetry. Let's do a book.
Yeah.
And it was her encouragement that we put together We Begin in Fragrant Fields, which really has an attachment to this place. So it's really
Nice.
poetry, place, and person. But after that, I started sending poems out to various journals. You can look them up online. You can sort of match like your sensibility and sensitivity to what that journal is looking for.
It's interesting.
You know, I'm not a person of a different place across the ocean or whatever. I'm a white woman from here.
Right, totally.
So,
You're not representing differently. I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. And you wouldn't want to. I mean, you're an artist, but you're not trying to be something you're not, right?
Yeah, thank you. And from that, I gained a modicum of success.
Right.
And
That's
so
great.
then I, said, well, I'm going to keep publishing. And now that I'm retired, I'm writing a lot and
That's great.
Hope to publish the next book, fourth book. So
I've journaled all my life, but I don't really know what to do with the journals other than I use them for self-process and so forth,
Well, there's validity in that.
Yeah,
you know?
and a lot of people have said that to me, that I think you should publish things, and it's like, yeah, but that's my journal, So I'm kind of on the fence about it, but it's interesting to know the process anyway.
Well, and you probably would edit it, like if you had a monthly column in a newspaper, people might relate to what
possibly,
you've gone through. If you wanted to do that and share it in that way with others, you'd have to edit it, no doubt.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely will think about that. Thanks for the suggestion.
You're welcome.
And my only last really sort of question that could be taking a minute or not is that, I love music. I find it to be very cathartic. I'll put on music. And again, I said I'm not that into poetry. I think I like to tell people I was forced to take it in college, even though I wasn't forced, obviously. It's a joke. And I had a great time, and I got a pretty good grade. So, hey, it's not all bad. But at the end of the day, when we're listening to songwriters, like, for example, one of my favorite songwriters is Taylor Swift. Is she a poet? Is that like poetry, and it's actually in my life, and I don't realize it's in my life? You know what I mean?
I think it's an interesting question, and it has a really long answer.
Oh, okay.
It's not a yes or no.
Okay.
So the last lyrics I looked at of hers, I thought had a kind of maturity, sophistication, and poetic quality, and that was her Elizabeth Taylor song.
Oh, yes. I love that song. Very good.
But her original songs, when you look at the lyrics alone, possibly don't stand as poetry, except for a very few who, like Alanis Morissette, who considers herself a poet.
Oh, she's excellent too.
Yeah. And Bob Dylan didn't think he was a poet, but he won the award, the Nobel
is too,
Prize in
but I mean,
Literature.
I'm not an expert of that guy, but I think he's a poet.
but music is often for someone to be able to feel the rhythm, so it often rhymes at the end. And it often has a refrain so that we can sing along.
Right.
So more popular music is not what I would call poetry, but certainly can appeal to the masses.
So like the chorus in the Elizabeth Taylor song, for example, you're saying is repetitive. It's
so that you can sing along.
So you can sing along.
But her other language, like when she talks...
The verses,
The verses, when she talks about the places... that Elizabeth Taylor was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't even pronounce the name.
Portofino was on my mind.
Yeah, well, Portofino,
I think you know why.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's so Swift. So, yeah.
But
that's a tie, like you said, to Elizabeth Taylor being from, her vacation home being from there.
So I can't help but be an academic here for just a second.
Of course.
And that is that originally, poetry was meant to be sung. So you have, even going back to the Greek choruses.
Okay.
In some of the early plays that had those repetitive refrains, we think that people got into the rhythm of, something that they could remember if they went back, because it was their only entertainment.
Right.
So they would go back numerous times to see an Aeschylus or one of the great, Sophocles, one of the great playwrights. So then when the troubadours came along, they were both men and women who picked up their lutes and would go actually from community to community and sing about the social norms of the day, the politic of the day, would sing about love and relationships. Well, this is Taylor.
A sonnet is a love poem, right?
It can be.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right, exactly. And
and that is very much, yes. Taylor has a lot of love songs.
Right, and anti-love songs.
And anti-love songs, yes.
So these troubadours would go, and people would listen to kind of the news of the day, and they would relate to the love or the politic. And I think it's the audience reception. So Taylor wouldn't be Taylor without her audience.
I completely agree. And just what you said makes me feel like she is definitely putting out poetry, because the way I connect to her music is exactly the way you said. And her fandom is a whole thing, too. You're right about that.
Yeah.
And I think Taylor, even though she may write about love a lot, it's like from a mature, as she's aged, obviously she has a discography now for a long time. And her, as she's continued to write, her maturity shows, and it also shows that she's become, and a lot of people are very critical of her, but she has become more of a feminist and more grounded in her own female reality and her own reality, which she does come from a very different background.
Right.
She has like I would argue, more privileged background. Her parents quit their job so she could pursue music at 15. Like, how many of us have that? Not many, right?
We don't have
so,
that,
like,
no.
I mean, I love it for her. Don't get me wrong, because we all get to listen to her jams. But, yeah, we don't all have that. So it's just to acknowledge the privilege, but it doesn't mean that she's any less good at writing. And even when she writes a, quote, anti-love song, I'm not sure if it's anti-love much as she's saying it's like, hey, this doesn't always work out, you know?
This is interesting because
Which I like.
I didn't relate to her at first because I felt she really had her audience in young people, and I appreciated what she was doing, and I appreciated how they could relate to her. But as she has matured, which is interesting, I find myself more engaged.
Many people love the folklore post era, which is like when she wrote the song during the COVID pandemic album, which is a very popular album. And it's like she does take a step. I mean, she's been taking the steps all along.
Right.
Reputation was sort of the first step out of that younger version of herself, if you will.
Yeah.
But like, because she was a young girl. She wrote a song about being 15 because she was only 15 in high school.
Right.
So that's why I reflected her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, you definitely. I mean, I get what you're saying because she's even younger than me, believe it or not. But I don't, like you were saying, I don't always identify with her background, like, you know, the school, this, that, the football player. Like, none of that's me either. But I identify with the feeling in the chorus, and I always sing along in that part. So you're right in that way. So it's very interesting. Very interesting to me. I love Taylor a lot, though. I also listen to a lot of Cardi B. So I'm like, is she a poet? So, you know, I'm going to be thinking about this now. But why don't we do another poem that you were going to do? I believe you're going to do I Did Not Walk the Prairie, right? So that it gives us a more modern, I think it was, well, I'll let you read it first.
I wrote this after actually walking 9 prairie sites that were refurbished. Because the prairie didn't exist except along railroad tracks and in cemeteries. There were some original or residual prairie. And so when awareness came around the late 1980s, these prairies, there were groups, states, even federal government, that started investing in these valuable ecosystems, which because the roots are so deep in the Midwestern prairie, the topsoil was 20 to 22 feet deep because of how the glacier receded from Illinois into Wisconsin and on up. So it gave this rich soil. So I live in Vermont, so all these Vermonters who went, why are we digging all these rocks?
Yeah, there's a lot of rocks in Vermont.
Let's go to where, to where we can get all this topsoil. But they couldn't go, even though they knew about it, until John Deere developed the steel plow. He's also a Vermonter.
Oh, wow, really?
And he went to Illinois and I'd be very negative about this, ravaged the prairie.
Well,
but,
I mean, and history just shows what it happened.
Right.
I mean, when you take off the topsoil, unfortunately, we ended up with a big problem called the Dust Bowl. Y'all read about it.
That's there too. So anyway, I wrote this, and so a lot of private enterprises have put in refurbished prairies and even supporting bison herds. There are 3 big ones just within 2 hours of Naperville. One is Medewan, one is Nachusa, and this one, and you'll hear it, which is a very unusual place to find a prairie. I did not walk the prairie. I did not walk the prairie with Illini women gathering nuts and berries, honey and wild seeds. I did not walk the prairie as founding fathers, mothers, children surveyed an ocean of tall stem grass. I did not walk the prairie as dear friend Nancy's kin who settled in broad grass, then villages and farms. I did not walk the prairie as plow stripped rows of hardy forbs whose roots could not outwit relentless steel. I did not walk the prairie when bison rolled and rolled till large water holes appeared and wallows brought new wildlife to the land. Yet I walk the prairie near Fermilab and fenced off farmers' fields, given in desire to preserve what once had been and should forever be. And Fermilab is an accelerator lab, or was, in Batavia, Illinois. And it was closed in 2011, but they have a rich research team, privately funded, put up. And so I have an image in my book of big bluestem, which is the dominant grass in the Midwest prairie. Yeah, and its shadow is covering one of their interpretive signs. It's like one of my favorite photographs that I took. So I have a lot of photographs that I took on these prairies.
It's interesting, even though I said I didn't grow up in the prairie, and I didn't. I definitely read Little House on the Prairie, so I feel like I know a little bit about, or the whole book series, but you know what I mean. But also, I in the last 15 years, I've been living in a farming community. And while they're not the same, they're similar in some ways. You know, like I can hear it in your writing, so to speak. And what I've also noticed in the farming community is the changes that have affected them in the last, decade or more. And it's like, significant things, like you're saying, this company, and they're just there, and you're like, when did you move in?
Right. Well, it's interesting because it's farmers, for a large part, who have donated or sometimes sold their land, depending on who was buying it for a refurbished prairie site.
Oh, yeah.
And so farmers have gotten very much involved in these projects.
Oh, yeah.
And they can donate part of their land. As you indicated, farmers have to change as
they do.
Climate
this climate's a real threat. The chemicals are a threat. It's a lot.
Sure. So farmers are the first line of offense, I would say, in helping preserve prairie.
Oh, great.
But you have to plant seeds from other sites,
right,
so that you can get a rich. So, by the way, a forb is anything that isn't a grass or sedge, meaning we use the word flowers and weeds.
Yeah.
In the world of the prairie, there's no such thing as weeds.
Oh,
it's
that's
all
beautiful.
forbs. Yeah.
I love that, actually, because
Yeah.
I don't actually pick a lot of my weeds.
Right.
I let them go because I think they're beautiful.
So Fermilab wanted to give back, and they had all this acreage for their accelerator.
Okay.
And so they have a bison herd because you have to have a large enough parcel of land to support. And what's really interesting, and you'll notice in the last poem I read, I use a lot of indigenous
yes, I did notice
characteristics, and something I studied a lot in junior high.
Oh, okay.
It was part of our class.
Oh, great.
In 7th and 8th grade, and I would like to give a pitch for teachers to do more with the indigenous population and culture.
I think that'd be great. I didn't have any of that in school, and I don't know if it's because I come from Massachusetts. We didn't really talk about the Native population other than to say, they lived in wigwams and this and that and other,
but not here.
Not here, and not very specific, and I, again, I went to school inner city in Worcester, and then, I came to college here.
Well, I wanted to tell you that right in Montague is the Montague Grasslands.
Oh, wow,
which
great.
have been refurbished as a grassland site. And in order to maintain grasslands, they don't, the seed pods are so small on grasses that there aren't pollinators. So, so the only way to get seed to disperse is through fire. And when I hiked it with my friend who's a ecologist, biologist, who introduced my book, she and I were witness to a grass burn, and there were young people who were studying firefighting who were doing the burn.
I actually got to see that one time when I came to school here in my science class. They were doing it's a controlled burn, correct?
Burn.
Yeah, and they let us, from far away watch. But it was very interesting. I was like, wow, I didn't know you could, but it really reset the earth, they said, and I was like, wow, that's very interesting. I wasn't the best science major, guys, but I'm telling you, I learned a few things in that class. I'm sorry. I mean, your book sounds so great. I hope people can pick it up.
Well, I was going to say I have one more poem. I don't know what our time is like right now.
We're good. I was just going to say if we want to finish up with the Sweet Moon poem, right?
Yeah. So this poem, I was in Naperville. I went in June to see the bloom, and I went back in August of 2024, and then it was from August through the following year, when I published the book in 25, that I witnessed like the closing of the prairie, if you will, the fallowness, going into fall and winter.
Right.
But because I was there in June during the full moon, which is called the strawberry moon.
Oh, wow. I called it the tiger moon. But
The tiger
it's
moon.
different here,
right.
maybe.
Well, it depends on who gets in the books.
Right.
But I actually wrote this poem also thinking about our good friend and colleague Donna Larson, who was nurse here for many, many years. And it turned out that the full moon that year was on the day of her memorial. So it fits both the prairie and it fits dear friend Donna. So Sweet Moon, in memory of Donna, June 24th, 2024. Strawberry moon, sweet moon, rising high within its longest day. Solstice, summer's length of days when possibilities arise to greet the dawn. Bright moon, full of light days, savoring each ripe red vine's deep juice, full of flavor days. Algonquins knew this sweetest month, and flush red berries reaped within rich soil. Each mouthful, jam, pink tea, or wine gives energy to those who let this moon and its rewards heal one's inner spirit that lasts the whole year long.
So lovely. Lovely. I really encourage anybody just to pick up the book if they even want to, it's like we're all living in a very hard world. It's nice to have something you can just enjoy. But,
That's true.
And I would thank you very much for coming on the podcast
thank you for
and
inviting
sharing
me.
your work with us and letting us know a little bit about poetry and maybe even songwriting and how to get published and all the other topics we covered.
Okay.
It was nice to have you.
Thank you.
And thanks again, Alex, for helping me out. And that's about it. Enjoy your day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
This concludes today's podcast. We're always looking for new ideas, so feel free to reach out to Judy Raper, Associate Dean of Community Engagement at Greenfield Community College, at 413-775-1819 if you have an idea you'd love to share. Special thanks to the creators of Backyard Oasis, Denise Schwartz, Chad Fuller, Dennis Lee, and Christine Copeland. Have a great day.